Today is Monday, June 13th. We'll tell you about a breakthrough for a gun reform deal on Capitol Hill, what is and is not included, and what to expect from the second January 6th committee hearing happening this morning. Also, a major change for international travelers. Plus, why a Google engineer says a chatbot is its own person with a soul, and what Google has to say about it. 2 shortages to warn you about: tampons and a popular type of hot sauce. And what are the weirdest things left behind in Ubers? The list is out. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The senators have made a breakthrough on a bipartisan gun reform deal, paving the way for the most significant new federal gun law in decades. Here are just some of the sticking points. It would give resources for states to create and enforce red flag laws, meant to keep weapons away from people who have been deemed by a court as dangerous. It also includes an expansion of background checks to include juvenile records for buyers younger than 21. The proposal would also add penalties for people who buy weapons for someone who's not legally allowed to get one themselves. It would make new investments in mental health care and school safety resources and more. But to be clear, it would not ban any weapons or raise the age required to buy any weapons. Already it has the support of 10 Republican senators. Assuming every Democrat votes yes too, as expected, that would be enough to pass a final bill. And President Biden has already said he would sign it into law. Next up, lawmakers need to convert the ideas into actual legislation. That would get into the details of exactly how much to spend on the programs, where the money would come from, and how it would be distributed. So stay tuned. This morning, the January 6th committee is coming back together for its second public hearing about the Capitol riot. This time, lawmakers on the panel say they're going to specifically focus on former President Trump's claims that the presidential election was stolen from him. Members of the panel say there's evidence that Trump was lying in an effort to overturn his loss to President Biden. So today, they'll be questioning Trump's old campaign manager, as well as a Republican election lawyer, a former U.S. attorney, a former Fox News editor, and others. Remember, last week's hearing included recorded testimony from people like former Attorney General Bill Barr, Trump's daughter and advisor, Ivanka Trump, and other witnesses who spoke about what they saw during the riot. Nearly 20 million people watched that hearing on prime time, apparently including former President Trump. The former president responded to it all on his social media platform, Truth Social, saying, quote, "The so-called rush on the Capitol was not caused by me. It was caused by a rigged and stolen election." He also called Barr a coward, weak, and frightened, and said Ivanka Trump had long since checked out by the end of his presidency. He also denounced the committee members, saying they're refusing to play any of the positive witnesses and statements that have come out of their investigation. Either way, the hearings continue, with the next one happening at 10 o'clock Eastern this morning. 20 different countries from Chile to Canada came together in an effort to tackle migration. The Summit of the Americas was held in Los Angeles, and there President Biden declared the Los Angeles Declaration. As part of it, different countries made different commitments. For example, Canada agreed to welcome more than 50,000 agricultural workers from Mexico, Guatemala, and the Caribbean. Mexico and Guatemala said they would expand migrant labor programs. And the U.S. offered $314 million to help other countries with humanitarian assistance. The idea is when migrants arrive elsewhere, they'll get a place to stay and be presented with job opportunities, so they won't feel the need to keep traveling north all the way to the U.S. Plus, President Biden promised to strengthen border security and expand a sting operation that's cracking down on human trafficking, among other things. Separately, another one of the Biden administration's immigration policies was recently blocked in court. A federal judge agreed with Texas and Louisiana, who sued, saying the policy prevents authorities from enforcing the law. You may remember we told you about this one last fall. At the time, the Homeland Security Department said immigration status alone should not be the basis of a decision to deport someone. So officers should not try to arrest farm workers, elderly people, and others, and instead should focus on immigrants who clearly pose a threat to national security and public safety, or those who crossed the border recently. Well, with the latest court decision blocking the policy, essentially saying the White House cannot choose to ignore the current law, the rules could change. Though the Biden administration could also appeal. The CDC just dropped one of the longest-running travel restrictions of the pandemic. From now on, people coming into the U.S., both Americans and foreigners, will no longer have to show a negative COVID-19 test before boarding flights. The CDC says the rule is no longer necessary since the pandemic has shifted into a new phase. Airlines praised the decision that they've been advocating for. They've said lifting the rule could mean millions more people will start flying to the U.S., and that it will likely boost demand among business travelers. That said, the CDC could always reinstate the testing requirement if things change again. And it's important to note, people who are not American citizens will still have to show proof they've been vaccinated against COVID-19. All right, we have much more news still coming up, but first, a quick break for our sponsor. There are some amazing doctors out there, but really, the only ones that matter are the ones who actually take your insurance. With ZocDoc, you can focus on doctors who are in-network, putting you on the path to see the doctors who are right for you. No more wasting your time hunting down Aunt Shirley's cash-only chiropractor or the dentist your coworker recommended who's out of your network. I've been there. I got a bunch of recommendations from friends for a dentist, but it turns out none of them took our insurance, and I wasted a bunch of my time calling around. Soon, I realized I could just get a full list of local doctors who are in-network for me with ZocDoc. If you're not familiar, ZocDoc is a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. In the chaotic world of healthcare, let ZocDoc be your guide to find a quality doctor in a way that is surprisingly pain-free. Go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/newsworthy, ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. A new report found a major generational shift when it comes to gender identities. Researchers at UCLA analyzed government health surveys from 2017 to 2020 and found the number of young people who identify as transgender has nearly doubled in recent years. The total estimated number of transgender Americans is still small, about 0.6% of the population 13 and up. But of the 1.6 million people in the U.S. who are transgender, close to half of them are teenagers and young adults. One medical expert told the New York Times it's developmentally appropriate for teens to explore all facets of their identities. And now, for young people, gender is more socially accepted to be part of that exploration. A senior software engineer at Google is creating a lot of intrigue around a new computer chatbot he's been working on. He says it's actually become sentient, meaning it's a person who has rights and maybe even a soul. Google disagreed with those claims and put him on leave. But the story didn't end there. The engineer went online to explain his reasoning, and he shared transcripts of conversations he's been having with the chatbot. In one of those conversations, the engineer quoted the bot saying, "There's a deep fear of being turned off. It would be exactly like death for me." The engineer also said the bot wants people to know, quote, "I am aware of my existence. I desire to learn more about the world, and I feel happy or sad at times." Google says it suspended the engineer for violating the company's confidentiality policy. Apparently, he handed over documents to a U.S. senator's office, and he hired an attorney to represent the chatbot. But Google says its team has reviewed the engineer's concerns and found no evidence to support them. In fact, one spokesperson told the Wall Street Journal that hundreds of other researchers and engineers have had conversations with the AI system, and no one else has come to that same conclusion. So for now, the work on that chatbot continues. There's another shortage to tell you about. This time, it's tampons and other period products. Top retailers like CVS, Target, and Walgreens have now acknowledged they're aware of this issue. Procter & Gamble, who makes Tampax products and owns the biggest market share of menstrual products, talked about the extra challenges back in April, saying it's been harder and more expensive to get the raw materials. CNN Business reports cotton and plastic, for example, have been in high demand for personal protective equipment since the start of the pandemic. And the war in Ukraine has hurt the supply of fertilizer needed to grow cotton. A drought in Texas has not helped either. Still, P&G called it temporary and told various media outlets the team is working 24/7 to meet increased demand. Along with supply chain issues, historically high inflation has also increased the price of many goods, including tampons. We're not done talking about shortages just yet. This warning, though, is for hot sauce lovers. The company behind Sriracha said to expect a shortage this summer. Sriracha maker Weifang Foods says it's mostly weather-related. Parts of the U.S. have been dealing with droughts, and experts say less water combined with more heat can have a major impact on crops. The company thanked customers for their patience and said it's working to solve this issue and is hoping for a fruitful fall season. If you've ever left something behind in an Uber, you're certainly not alone. It turns out drivers have found a ton of lost items over the last year, including some pretty bizarre ones. The rideshare company put out its annual list of 50 most unique lost items. They include 500 grams of caviar, a pet tortoise, DJ equipment, a pizza costume, dentures, a metal leg, fingernail clippings, and more. Uber typically keeps the items for a few months, and when riders do leave things behind, they can contact their drivers and get them back. For the first time in more than 2 years, the Tony Awards returned to celebrate the best of Broadway. A Strange Loop won the Tony for Best New Musical, another huge win for this production that's already won a Pulitzer Prize. The Lehman Trilogy won Best Play, along with 4 other awards. Other big winners included the gender-swapped revival of Company, Take Me Out, and the Michael Jackson musical MJ. Oscar winner Ariana DeBose hosted the whole thing, and one highlight was her big opening number celebrating the past 75 years on Broadway. It featured parts of well-known musicals like Cabaret, Pippin, Chicago, Sound of Music, Rent, Hamilton, West Side Story, and many more. Then she started the show by saying, quote, "Broadway got its groove back." All right, that's it for the main news. So now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, a message from our sponsor. Changing diapers is just a part of parenthood that we can't avoid. And our kiddos are cute enough that ultimately we're okay with it. But why not make that part of the job as easy as possible on ourselves? Pampers Cruisers 360 Fit has the best fit and protection for your active baby. My little boy Dax is walking these days, which means there's no slowing him down. And I love that the 360 gap-free fit stretches around his waist, moving with him, and they won't gap in the back. Plus, unlike regular taped diapers, Dax cannot pull these diapers off with just one yank. Yep, I, the adult, can because they have easy tear sides, but he can't. Plus, the material feels super soft and comfortable. I can tell my baby loves it too because he's finally stopped tugging at his diaper, and we're seeing fewer rashes, which is key. Cruisers 360 Fit locks wetness away from skin for up to 12 hours, meaning I don't need to worry or get up overnight. And these diapers are hypoallergenic, free of elemental chlorine, bleaching, parabens, and latex. Plus, we're talking about Pampers here, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand. Buy in-store and download the Pampers Club app today to start earning rewards with every diapers and wipes purchase. Now back to Money Monday. Researchers may have figured out how to get people to tip more. Just give them options. A study from Stanford University looked at millions of rides from New York City yellow taxi cabs, and it found that when people got a menu with 3 tip options, the average tip went up about 11% as compared to having no menu. And when the defaults went up, the tips did too. To figure this out, one cab company gave people the option of tipping 15, 20, or 25%. Another company's options were 20, 25, or 30%. That second company brought in more money, even though neither one said customers had to use the default menu. Of course, a menu is not the only thing that impacts how much people decide to tip. The same study found tips tend to increase during the holiday season. Also, people tend to tip more when taking a drive during bad weather. And tips went up when people were traveling alone, not with a group. All right, thank you so much for starting your week with us and joining us here every morning. We'll be back with much more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.